Welcome you all to Living in Scripture. And today we are having our final episode of this series, at least for some time, after many months of sharing very beautiful sections, very beautiful verses, probably most of them unknown to some of you. And I hope this has been very inspiring. But today we are reaching an end point for some time at least, since very soon I will be publishing my third book, Evolution in Divine Love, the Eternal Becoming of God, Soul, and Matter. So I would like to, as a way of continuing to explore the content of that book for my own self and for all of us, I will be starting some weekly reflections with different sections and content from that particular work. So today we are arriving therefore to our last episode of Living in Scripture, and for that I'm choosing to share with you one of my favorite verses. Why not to celebrate in that way? In this case, for sure my favorite verse from the Brhad-bhagavatamrta of Sanatana Goswami, but one of my favorite verses from all the scriptures. And Brhad-bhagavatamrta has so many wonderful, beautiful meditations, but somehow or other this has been always very touching for me. So I'd like to share it with you. This is Brhad-bhagavatamrta, 2nd canto, 4th chapter, verse 228. So it says, viśeṣato nāgara-śekharasya, sva-rāmatādi-sva-guṇāpavādaiḥ, apekṣaṇīyā parama-priyā kāṣṭhā śrī-bhagavattva-sīmnaḥ. So the translation in English says like this, very deep, very esoteric, fasten your seatbelt. It is especially noteworthy that the crest jewel of clever heroes, Sri Krishna, can forego his atmaramata, his self-satisfaction, and all his other qualities, but he cannot give up his quality of coming under the control of his beloved devotees. He accepts their control graciously. This alone is the ultimate limit of his bhagavatta, or his godhood. So there is so much to unpack here, and we are just spending 10-ish minutes in this series, so I cannot go too much, but it's a beautiful verse, as hopefully you can already glimpse at. So let's try to break out the different sections of this verse. Sanatana Goswami takes our attention saying there is something especially noteworthy here, viśeṣato, something special, something that comes with some vaishishthya, some specialness, something worthy of highlighting for a moment. What is that? Nāgara-śekharasya, the crest jewel of all clever heroes. That's another name for the divine. He's a clever, most smart, more, connoisseur of different tastes, qualities, artistic mellows. It's very noteworthy that such a person, sva-rāmatādi-sva-guṇāpavādaiḥ, basically, that he can forego his quality of being self-satisfied, being atmaram, finding ram, pleasure in his atma, in his own self. He can forego that quality. Adi means other qualities, all his other qualities, but there's one quality that he cannot give up, which is to come under the control of those who are parama-priyā, his dearmost, his beloved devotees. So he can even leave his qualities of being self-satisfied and so on, but he cannot stop being controlled by his devotees. And then the conclusion comes, says, accepting this control is the ultimate limit of his godhood. Bhagavattva-sīmnaḥ. Simma means the final reach, the ultimate reach, the limit of godhood. I mean, there's no limit, of course. In other words, what makes God God, the godhood, the main quality that makes God who he is the fact that he becomes controlled by the love of his lovers. And in the context of the love of his lovers, he loses his self-satisfaction, atmaram, and becomes parā, in the words of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He becomes divinely dissatisfied. Why? Because the nature of love is that it always creates a thirst, a hunger for more. So Krishna is loved by his devotees, but he knows I can be loved even more. And he loves his devotees in return, and he feels I'm not never giving enough. I'm an eternal indebtor to my beloveds. So I should give more, and I want to give more, and I can give more, but at the same time, there's so much more to give. So there's this interesting creative tension between God as self-satisfied, I don't need anything, but in the context of love, oh, so much more love can be always had, can be always experienced. So this is a very interesting theological point made here by Srila Sanatana Goswami, which makes this verse basically my favorite. And I recall writing a whole article in this connection about how this verse is indirectly hinting at the appearance of the divine Sri Chaitanya, which is Krishna realizing his indebtedness to the love of the gopis in Vrindavan, not knowing how to pay back, but trying to pay back and experiencing this holy dissatisfaction and trying to do something about it. And Sri Chaitanya Dev is the result of that. So again, many times our idea of God is more related to Atmaram, right? He's self-satisfied, all this omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient, omni, all-powerful. An idea that is relatively more related to the notion of God. But as we know in our tradition, we like to speak about Krishna, and sometimes I like to speak of Krishna as God as an aspect of Krishna, not Krishna as an aspect of God. Krishna is God beyond God. The qualities that generally define God are not the ones that define Krishna. And interestingly, here, Sanatana Goswami said, śrī-bhagavattva-sīmnaḥ. The ultimate limit of Godhood is when God becomes a servant of his servants. Bhagavan bhakta bhaktiman, will say Sukadeva Goswami in the Bhagavatam. How to define Bhagavan, which generally is translated as God and associated with all opulences and qualities, bhakta bhaktiman. He's the bhakta of his bhaktas. He's the servant of his servants. He's the lover of his lovers. That's Bhagavan. That's God ultimately. Ultimately, God becomes something else than God. The usual qualities that define God no longer define who Krishna is, who Chaitanya Dev is. No, there's something more. All that is there plus something else. So Sanatana Goswami, he's in awe and wonder here, marveling. Wow, Krishna, the divine, the clever hero, the crest jewel of all clever people. He's so clever. The implication could be also he's so clever. He's such a clever hero that he knows how and when to leave all his qualities for the pursuit of holy dissatisfaction, so he can become Bhakta Vatsala, a lover of his lovers, and come under the control of love. That's Sri Krishna Akarsani, Rupa Goswami say. The quality of prem is it controls, it attracts the all attractive. Krishna means the all attractive, but also the all attractive becomes all attracted by prem, by love. So Krishna is such a clever hero. He's so smart that he knows that there's a moment that he needs to leave aside all his qualities, even his self-satisfaction, in the pursuit of that quality that ultimately defines him the most, his most defining quality, becoming under the control of love. Dehi pada palavamudaram, Krishna bowing down to the feet of Sri Radha, massaging her feet, honoring love, putting his head to the ground. That's the God we worship. A God who worships love, a God who has his own altar when love is the deity. So that's the ultimate limit of Godhood. That's the ultimate defining aspect, defining moment of the divine, what the Bhagavatam will call Krishna-stu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is God when he wants to be himself. God in his ultimate form of identity, the all-attractive, the all-attracted, the one who submits to love, the one who becomes a slave of his slaves, as Srila Siddham Raj will say, the one who relishes in becoming under the control of his devotees. Like in so many verses of the Bhagavatam, this is mentioned. I cannot go now through each one of those. But there are so many. Ham bhakta paradino hyashratan trivadu, etc. People know me as the supremely independent, but actually my ultimate identity, I'm dependent on my devotees. I'm willing to leave all my qualities as long as I do not lose my defining quality who makes me who I am ultimately. Surrendering to love and living to honor that holy discontent that creates further and further, not only thirst for love, but further and further waves of dynamic reciprocal loving interaction, which keeps the lila and the transcendence and reality going, working, revolving in spiral-like movements of ever-evolving love, which will be the topic of my third book. So it's very, I was not thinking about this in purpose. I just picked this favorite verse of mine. But this points so much to the ever-evolving nature of love and how that makes for a God who is not static but dynamic, not merely atmaram, but parā. And that will be such a crucial aspect of the book that I'm about to publish, Evolution in Divine Love. So again, we are putting to rest this series, Living in Scripture, at least for some months, where we will choose to concentrate on this third book that I'm publishing, which somehow, of course, is so much related to our tradition and our scripture. So it will be another way of continuing with this series, exploring different verses, different quotes, different concepts and ideas in the context of the evolution of love and what an ever-evolving love creates. What's the result of love being ever-evolving in God, in us, in the world of matter, in all of reality. So thank you so much for joining me and us on this journey for this last good amount of months where we have been exploring these unknown secret corners of the sacred texts. And we will continue to do so, of course, forever. Eternity is on our side. But from the next week onward, we'll change a little bit the perspective, continue our exploration, and hopefully you can join us together as well. Same day, same timing of publication. So see you there. Thank you so much. And as usual, whatever inspiration, whatever you may like to feel, whether in connection to this verse or to this series so far, be generous, be open, be vulnerable. Feel free to share any comments in the comment section so we can enrich each other, accompany each other in the journey, which is, again, ongoing, ever evolving. See you there.